that he's going to join us live. So today I'm so honored to have the content marketing manager from thinkific, Elise Asanas, join us live and to discuss content marketing and how you and we can create irresistible content that people are going to check it out and buy from you and can move the content around. And before we get into the Q&A, and I just want to introduce our amazing guest, Elise, a little bit. She has extensive background in content marketing and content creation. Is a content marketing strategist. And also, as I mentioned earlier, serves as the content marketing manager at thinkific, which I'm a huge, huge fan of thinkific. And today we are going to discuss ways that we can create irresistible content. And so I'm so sorry again about the tech failures, but thank you for being so patient. And welcome to the show, Elise.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we pushed through the tech challenges and we're all good. We made it work. So.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So my first question is, if you can just let us know, as I mentioned, introduced you earlier, you have extensive backgrounds in content marketing, and tell us more about what you do at thinkific.
Yes, sure. Happy to do that. So yes, as I mentioned, I've worked in content marketing in different areas, in different organizations, servicing clients as well, in technology space, in a creative space, in really innovative spaces. There's lots of startups around Vancouver, Canada here. And what I really love to do is tell stories that connect with the audience that we're trying to reach. And so as marketers, that's our job, is to tell those stories. And so I love doing that. I live and breathe it. So at thinkific, I do that in mapping content strategy for telling the stories of how we can empower people through education, online education to be specific. And so what I'm doing there, really looking for opportunities to tell those stories through blogs, through webinars, through resource guides and lead magnets, mapping how does that parlay to YouTube and repurposing and so on and so forth. So I love it. I love storytelling, and yeah, happy to be here.
Oh, that's so awesome. I just love how you mentioned you are I was reading some of your blogs, and you are just such an amazing storyteller. I can't wait to learn more about best tips and practices from you in terms of how you are creating stories. And yeah, so as like digital marketers, and many of my audience are also entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, they couldn't join us live today. And so we all know how important it is to create content, right? We have this know, like, and trust. And it is through content that people like get to know us and trust us. But I discovered with so much content, it has become increasingly more and more challenging to have content that it is noticed and it is shared, commented by other people. So in your opinion, what are some of the essential elements of creating irresistible content and stories?
Yes, and this is a great question because I think it's something that a lot of, especially small business owners, they struggle with, right? Cutting through the noise, cutting through a saturated marketplace. So I learn well with stories too, so I can talk through an example. And I always think of, when you're in a cocktail party, as an example, you want to be able to, when someone's telling a really magnified story, with 100 people in a room, and it's a great story, people stop to listen, and there's some silence that falls on the audience. And so you want to have that effect with the digital landscape and cutting through that digital noise. So how do you do that? So when I think about, if you think about that scenario, what are the ingredients that are happening in that room that you can sort of reverse engineer and apply to your own content strategy? So number one, you need to connect with who is the audience that you're telling the story for. You need to have an idea of who is it that you're trying to reach. So in that room, it might be 1 or 2 people out of that 100 people in a room, and that's okay because you're not trying to be all things to everybody, and understand what your story is. So in true customer journey mapping style, who you're trying to reach, what are the stages that they're going through, and what are they thinking, feeling, and doing with this story that you're trying to tell. And secondly,
so if I may interrupt you, so are you saying that in your mind there's this like one person, kind of like one group of people that you are speaking, you are sharing the story to? Is that right?
Yes, very much so. And so so I love reading and writing with a writing background, writing for news, whether it's copywriting, landing pages, or you're just telling a human story, like a success story, a lot of writers will tell you, you pick someone in your mind that you're writing for, and you give that person a name. Maybe it's someone you know in real life, or maybe it's a customer, whoever the case may be, whatever you're trying to reach for your business. Put that persona together so that when you're writing, you're not having to struggle to think, oh, maybe this or that. You have that picture painted for you. So that one person you're trying to reach, who is that person? And then secondly, if someone's telling a really great story and everyone's stopping to listen, there's obviously something in that story that's really magnetizing. So, what is it? They have a human angle, or there's something controversial. So what is it in the actual elements of the story that you can start to put into your own? And so that might show up in different ways for your business, whether you're writing your personal kind of mission statement for your company, if you're a solopreneur and entrepreneur, that might look a little bit different than if you're a large enterprise and you have the larger you go, the more complex your storytelling becomes. You might have different versions of your story. So thinking about that and what are those human angles that you can put in. And then thirdly, it's not enough to just have a great story. You need to also be thinking about, what is my distribution method for this story? Because I know a lot of creative entrepreneurs and business owners that they have amazing stories, some of the most I've ever heard, or the most talented illustrators, but without having a network effect, how are you going to get people evangelized to actually tell your story on your behalf when you're not there? Because that's the power of the network, right? And you're growing and scaling your business on their behalf. So I would say thinking about that and embedding that in your strategy as you're crafting your story, because crafting a great story is one thing, but how are you going to get it out to the people that you want to reach?
Yeah, I almost feel like it's so many great points that I want to unpack.
Yeah.
So you mentioned distribution. Do you think having quality content and having a very effective distribution strategy, which one is even more important, or both are equally important?
Well, let me ask you this. If you had a story that was going, viral, and I see this a lot with even top sellers and top charts. So you have songs that go out for the top 10 list, and everyone loves it for a little while because it, it satisfies whatever that is in you at the moment. A week later, everyone's forgotten about you. So would you rather have the masses hear your story, or have, let's say, 100 really engaged followers hear a story that they can really get behind? Maybe it's not the most eloquently told story, but you're obviously connecting on a human level. So what I would say is that you want to, think about who that persona is. And to your question, is it better story or distribution? Story, because I would rather have 100 highly engaged followers than a billion people on an email list that are going to like it, maybe share it once, but they'll forget about you a minute later. So, and Kelly talks about this as the idea of your 1,000 true fans, and how can you create that critical mass? And so those are the people that are going to drive 500 miles to hear you sing or to see your first art show, and they're going to buy everything known to man that you put out because they love you and they connect with your story. And so that's the power of having a great story, and then it sort of starts to do its legwork for you if you're smart about your distribution.
Oh, I love this. It's so true, so true. And also you mentioned to add a human angle to the storytelling. And I just love that so much. I just finished reading Mark Schaefer, his book, The Marketing Rebellion. And he was talking so much about this human angle. But I want to hear you. So can you elaborate more on this human angle? Because I think this is what many brands and entrepreneurs we miss. The story, it's not a story. It's like a press release. There's no human angle. So tell us more about this human angle, because I think this is a great point.
Yeah. And this is a really important point. And it's going to show up for you in different ways depending on your business model and the people you're trying to reach. So to use a couple of examples, if you are a solo entrepreneur, or particularly a creative entrepreneur, your story and your why is going to be really, really important to differentiating yourself in a saturated market, right? And so when I think about adding a human angle, and I always tell people, when you're thinking about content management and planning your strategy, use the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your content should be about articulating, the value proposition and the benefits of your business, but you want to save a key part of that, let's say the 20%, to talk about who you are as a brand and the experiences that you're actually cultivating for people when they connect with you. And so I would say, your why as a creative or a solo entrepreneur, or let's say you're a coach and you're doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, building up that personal brand and telling the stories of yourself and why you got into the business, as well as your clients and their transformative stories, that's going to be a really key part of your marketing, because you're building a personal brand. Now, if you're building a business brand, so those are like two different things. If you're a small or medium-sized business and you don't have a face to your brand, you can still leverage human angles of your story. So that might look a bit different. That might look like bringing people through the journey of the case studies of the customers that you've served, or maybe even the why of the founder of a company. Put that into your key messaging. So depending on if you have different areas of your different departments, making sure that why is consistent throughout. And in terms of human angles specifically, whenever I've written key studies or stories for testimonials to garner social proof, I always think of the three-pronged story arc. What was the challenge, solution, and impact? I call it my CSI framework and a bit of investigative work when you're interviewing for stories.
Say that again. Challenge, solution,
impact. Challenge, and impact. So anytime I write a case study or a story about an entrepreneur or anyone who's used your service, you want to get at least those three main points to really show the transformation journey there. And if you watch great movies and screenwriters, they actually talk about a lot of them use the idea of the hero's arc, right?
The hero, exactly. I was about to say that. Yes.
Yeah. So this is really, I know people have done this since the beginning of time. Shakespeare does this, some of the best marketers do this. And you just put different clothes on it in different ways and talk about it in different angles. Really, you're charting that transformation journey from A to Z.
And you can feel it, right? Like in your heart, you just, what's going to happen next?
Yes.
Right? It just keeps you going and going. And I noticed, not just in terms of writing, even for some YouTubers, some of their videos, I just want to finish from the beginning to the end because I want to know what's happening next. Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
Yes, I would also say from human angles, we kind of covered that in terms of, what else you can include. A lot of times, like, people who have questions around what you do, answering those questions, because obviously if you're getting that question many, many times, chances are people are feeling that pain point or having that question about your business. And so that's a really good way to tell stories that, people want to pick up on or want to know the answers for. That's a little bit more informative than a human angle, but that's a good way to get the resonance going with the story that connects.
Oh, I love this. Just, I wish my community were here because you just make so many great points. So do you actually have a flow to produce content? I know you do lots of blogging, and do you also do other type of content at thinkific? So do you have a flow, tell us your secret. How do you start? Like, do you have a content calendar? What is your flow in terms of creating content? Because you are very productive. You produce lots of good quality content. Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of a flow, I mean, it depends what goal we're going after at the time. And I'm a big believer in setting your strategy before you start to do anything one-off, because you want to get, the evergreen returns to have something that lasts perennially rather than just doing things over and over and over. So I always make sure that before I create any piece of content, I have an idea of how that maps to my strategy. So I make sure that I have even a cursory customer journey map and understanding, okay, are you problem aware, solution aware, chunking those off to my target persona that we talked about having already done. And then from there, it's actually a lot easier to identify, should I do a blog, a webinar, or a resource guide? Because I can see, okay, if you're in the brand awareness stage, you need to be doing some more things to build up that brand awareness, all that free content out there. So blogs, working on your SEO, working on free YouTube videos, things that are going to generate those micro deposits of trust to your audience, so that by the time you want to bring them through the funnel, you're not actually selling to them. They're waiting to engage with you and to give you money because you're serving them. And so I would say, think about your customer journey map, and then it's much more easier to say, okay, I'm going to allocate this much time a month to do blogging because I need to build up my brand awareness as a strategic goal, versus I have zero nurture follow-on content, so I should actually probably put some time to doing some training or some webinars or whatever the case may be. So, right now at Thinkific, we do a whole mix of that, but I've worked with other organizations where, it was really just about sharing out blogs to build up brand awareness, and that's okay because you set that as your goal, and you know that you're going to measure your success on that as your goal.
Well, I love this. So do you always plan out your content ahead of time? Like how far in advance? And do you have any kind of content in the moment, spontaneous content, or everything's planned?
That's a great question too. And so I think it will also be different for different businesses, but in past, I've planned yearly content calendars, which is a stretch. However, nothing stays set in stone, but at least you have a bit of a theme, a skeleton, and then you can start to say, okay, in this quarter, I'm going to talk about this theme for these types of personas. But, you know, right now I have about a solid quarter planned out for the different campaigns that we're doing. You know, we plan on a quarterly basis depending on certain campaigns. So it might be different for different parts of your business, but I would say, you know, it's great to have a quarter, I think in quarters, a quarter plan for, you know, what is your menu of your blogs. And so one tip I also like to give people too is when you're planning out your monthly content, making sure that you have a balanced menu of the types of content and the types of people that you're serving with that content. So, you know, if you want to have some really meaty educational guide content, you know, who is that targeted to that month? You want to have some sort of sprinkly entertainment content that's easy to share, bite-sized stuff you can share on social media. You want to make sure you have your entertainment piece on your menu, your meaty piece on your menu, maybe some appetizer pieces, some get to know you. This is what we do. This is what sets us apart from our competitors stuff on your menu. So I would say to have a think of what that balance looks like for you. But I definitely go through the motions every month to think, okay, how many pieces of content am I serving a particular persona for? Am I okay with investing for this amount of time? And then maybe that might look different for the next quarter, but also not getting too swept up in, you know, particular campaigns that take all your time to do one person, so you're not leaving the rest of your people out. So taking a balanced approach is always good.
I really love this because I feel like, for me at least, sometimes when I'm creating content, I think too much about what type of content I'm so passionate about. Then I tend to forget about my audience. So I love how you're thinking of what are the audience persona, like different types of audience you have, and you are creating content catering to each like demographic of your audience. This is so smart. And once you have that plan, you can see more like clearly, right? Instead of everything's in my mind. I don't know. I feel like, so I need to make it more measurable. So I really love this.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And a great exercise to do is even, you know, Google customer journey map, because that will really get you started in thinking, what are my people? Who are they? What are they thinking, feeling, and doing at every stage? And then I tell you, it will become very obvious that you need to do a blog here or a YouTube video there. And, you know, you want to start with, in terms of the channels that you use, you want to start with what you feel comfortable with and also what you're good at, intersecting with the watering hole of your audience, and then go after that thing, especially when you're starting out. But yeah, the mapping is helpful.
Oh, this is so good. So like, are you also in charge of repurposing content, or you mainly does just one type of content?
Yeah, so we try and repurpose our content as much as possible. I always recommend this. You're not making work for work's sake. So let's say you're shooting a video. Why not shoot it horizontally and vertically? You can take snippets of that and put them on Instagram or IGTV. You know, a strategy I see a lot of people do is, you know, make your major place YouTube for video and then slice and dice it across your different social channels. But you shouldn't have to be making individual content for every single channel unless you have a content team of 50 people and you're Gary Vee and you're like spitting out content left and right. Repurposing is a big part of your strategy if you want to be sustainable down the road.
Oh, I love this. But how about for people who are just kind of 1 or 2 people team, like a small team? So any like strategies or tactics that you can share to make repurposing content a little bit easier?
Yeah, I would say, you know, if you are, depends what channel that you're trying to monopolize on. So if your audience, if you know that they want to engage with you over social media, okay, so that might be your main platform to parlay the information. So I would say if you're big on video, for an example, and you want to slice and dice that to Twitter and Instagram, take pieces of your video. Think about crafting your video, even your script, in a way that you could chunk up into smaller bits, right? So when you're planning, say, an interview like we're doing now, if you give them the heads up and say, hey, I want to talk about marketing, I want to talk about digital marketing in these three things, you know, growing your list, how to use email, how do you connect that to your demand generation, and then how to use that for follow and nurture sequence. You have a video with an expert, you could split that into 3 different modules. You could post those into IGTV on 3 different days. You could have those staying there in your stories. So there's many ways to repurpose it. And then I would always say, Test, 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 because what you think is going to work may not be what your audience wants to hear. And also, test the headlines that you put out there for repurposing. Test the times of day that you post, because sometimes what you post on one platform may perform better on another, posted in different times of day. So you need to just keep moving your feet and start to test how your repurposing is going to perform for you in the long term. Yeah,
this is so true. Like, I really love the idea of testing, because sometimes what I discovered was so different from what I was assuming. Like, for example, certain hours of posting or certain type of content, and it's like so true. For you mentioned the headlines. So like, I remember one time I listened to this podcast interview, and this lady, I think might be even on Marie Folio, and she mentioned that like every time when she releases a piece of content, maybe video, blog article, whatever, she has 35 headlines before she finally chooses one. Do you guys do that? I was like, wow, that's like impressive.
That's a lot of headlines. I don't do 35. However, I will do a handful. I will do a handful. Wow. And then, what's a great way to test too is if you, let's say you put your headline on your blog, and keep in mind, you want to have your domain, your slug of your blog and your headline matching for SEO purposes. But it's not to say that can never change. And so let's say you've got your blog published and now you want to test how to engage on social media. You could have 3 or 4 different versions of your headline going out on different posts and seeing, are people clicking on this more, even if I'm posting it at the same amount of time, or repurposing that blog through email and say, hey, I just posted this amazing guide blog, check it out, and A/B test 3 or 4 different headlines. And that will give you a good gauge next time you publish a blog, what you should even put in your headline in the first place. And, as a rule of thumb, you don't want it too long, so it's bite-sized, probably 7 to 8 words is usually good. Questions work well for headlines. Controversial things sometimes work well, depending on your brand tone and your messaging. People love lists. Stay away from even numbers for some reason. People like odd numbers, so 3s and 7s work well. 4s and 2s.
That is so interesting. But yeah, now as you mentioned it, yes. Why is that?
I don't know. Go interview a psychologist and let me know, because I would love to know.
Yeah, like all the people, like top 3, right? 5 or 7. Yeah, or 11. Oh yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So test different things. And at the end of the day, you'll read different blog articles. You can find copious amounts of studies on there on what you should and should not put in your headline. At the end of the day, it's going to be different for your particular audience and the people that you're cultivating to engage with your content. So you just have to.
Now I just realized I did everything wrongly. Like, after talking to you, I just love this like much more like strategic approach than I'm just like pray and spray, right? Like just hoping like spontaneous. I have lots of spontaneous content. Like, like I feel like, but I see how, I think you just need to have a good balance, have a calendar, and you see like which type of audience you are ignoring, make your approach more scientific and strategic. So I love this. And share with us, and you are one of those people who just have like constant ideas, blog articles, this and that. How about for some people who are not as creative as you? So where do you find topics to discuss? I think that's one question I hear a lot, regardless on Facebook Live or LinkedIn. People like, I don't know what to talk about, what to say. So for this group of people, and do you have any tips, advice to share with us in terms of creating irresistible content?
Yes, I would say there's a few things you can do. I would say the first thing, poll your audience. If you haven't done that yet, simple surveys, so easy to do now, whether you're on Instagram. If you have communities that you're building up, you can pull them on Slack. You can pull them on your Facebook groups. You can book calls out on your Instagram, on your Twitter, you name it. And if you have that as a monthly cadence, or however that looks like for your audience, honestly, that's a great way to get fodder for stuff. So you're not assuming that this is what my audience wants to hear. Another thing that I've done in past that's worked well is, if you have an email list, or if you're in the process of building one, ask your people, where are you in your journey? What is one challenge that you have in your business that you'd like me to help you solve? Because obviously, if they signed up for your email list, they're interested in hearing from you. So the fact that you're asking them, how can I help and serve you, is going to I would think, great, this person actually wants to hear what I have to say, and maybe they're going to create some content just for me. And that's the type of audience that you want to build up if you want your 1,000 true fans. So I'd say, number one, pull your audience if you haven't done that. Number two, you can always do an audit for what is your competitors out there doing. You want to be aware about what they're doing, but you don't want to copy exactly what they're doing. So you can say, okay, if someone's doing a guide on this, is there a space for me to do that differently or better? That's obviously a common SEO strategy. If you're having a hard time coming up with topics, go, sign up for a BuzzSumo or something like that and have a look at the most shared content. You do a keyword search in there for digital marketing. You can have a sense of, or influencer marketing, who's creating the most shareable content. Why is that? Is it because they have a lot of backlinks? Is it because they are getting lots of Pinterest shares? Sometimes it might surprise you on why things are succeeding. And so then you can go back and say, do I have any gaps in the way that I'm communicating, and think up some more content ideas from a strategic level. Now, when it comes down to specific topics, so let's say digital marketing, should I talk about emails or figuring out who that will fit with your audience? Again, marry that back up to what they've told you they want to hear. And then again, you're testing that messaging and audience. There's also tools out there that can help you generate topics. So headline tools, so you type in a topic out there and it will generate 10 blog topics for you. If you're really creative and strapped, you can Google those things. They're everywhere. I know SEMrush has a tool that you can go and look if you want to talk about, I don't know, let's say email marketing again. Type that in into some sub-levels and it will give you a whole clusters of ideas and what you can talk about and who's talking about them, who's sharing the most, and find some opportunities there. So hopefully that gives some helpful tips.
Oh, I love this because I was just, you mentioned BuzzSumo. I love that because nowadays sometimes I have people contact me. I was like, how did you discover me? They were like, BuzzSumo. So wow, it's really powerful. I use it myself. And also, I don't know if you use Answer the Public.
I heard it's a good tool.
Yeah, it's actually very good. That's what I use. Sometimes I just enter a keyword, like for example, like live streaming, and then they give you like a pie chart of all the topics, subtopics. So that is another thing I really enjoyed. Yeah.
Another thing I would say off of that, if you are on a particular platform like YouTube, for example, start to type in different searches and you're going to get that search popping up. And if that pops up a lot of times, and that also matches with what your community is telling you that they have a pain point on, create a video on that and see how it goes. See how many comments you get. A lot of times, I've created some blog posts out of the comments that I've gotten on other posts. Like, oh, great, you did a great job on this question, but what about this? If enough people say that, that's a good indication that you should create another piece of content on those questions. So a lot of times, if you engage your community with your content, you can start to source your next pieces of content in those group discussions. So it's doing the work for you.
Oh, I love this. Do you also go to like other, for example, for Thinkific, maybe Teachable's other like competitors' site and to look at their comments or YouTube channels and just gather some ideas that way?
I mean, going to spy? Yes. I think, whatever works for you, if you can make it work and get some intel, go and have a look. I haven't really looked extensively in their groups and things, but, I think it's a smart move to go and look at the competitors, what they're doing.
I'm going to, Like I rarely just like, for example, after I run a show, normally there are lots of comments. And I'm guilty of not going back to revisit the comments because I know there are some questions that are not answered. So in that case, I can actually write down all the comments, questions not answered, and do a blog or invite someone else to talk. This is such a great idea. It never occurred to me.
And it's really, leveraging, when we talked about repurposing, it's leveraging all this hard work that you've done. So you might as well, even at the end of your videos, just tell people, let me know if there's anything that I forgot in this video that you wanted to hear. Let me know in the comments. Just by that single call to action, you're inviting people to engage with you and you're coming down to their level and saying, hey, I want to have a conversation. I'm not out here in the video land, not reachable. And people will respond to that. So try it and let me know how it goes.
I really loved it. This is such a great idea. And I'm going to, It's almost like instead of making content creation just this one person's job, and I love how you are talking about it's almost like co-creation effort, right? So you and your community, you guys are co-creating the content so that you can better serve the community members. This is brilliant. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So what is next for you, Elise, in terms of content creation for Thinkific? What is cool? What is exciting that is going on? Are you going to attend social media examiners conference?
Right, social media marketing world. I will not be there, but many of my teammates will. So you can go say hi to Thinkific. We'll be all roaming around the booths there. So yeah, definitely say hi. But in terms of content, we have actually right now, we have an author series launching at the very end of March. So if you are an author and curious about how to extend your business after all this IP that you've written in a book or something like that, you can learn how to put it into a course. So we're interviewing about 10 to 12 industry experts on how to do that with online courses with Thinkific. So that's coming up at the end of March. We actually just wrapped a very similar campaign for coaches. So a lot of coaches doing one-on-one, you get tapped out doing coaching. How do you then leverage online courses to scale your business? We did a campaign on that just recently. So you can have a look on our blog for that. But yeah, we're starting to do more, I would say, niche and targeted groups for content creation to make sure we're really filling that full, dialing in the funnel to answer those common questions. So if you're not—
Oh, I love this. I remember you guys are so good. Before I became a super fan of Thinkific, really what helped me to make that decision was the free videos, the interviews you did, and the blog articles, all the free content, which is so amazing and answered almost all of my questions. And so yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah. So thank you to you, people like you who are just like putting so much hard work and effort to produce this quality content, because it really helped us, as if you understood exactly every single question I was about to ask. I was like, how about this? Oh, there's an article, and then there's a video. So this is really amazing. Yeah.
Hear that? This is great validation right here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So this is great. And parting piece of advice in terms of content creation for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or small business owners.
Yes, I would say, if you're a solopreneur and you're just getting started with content creation, I hear a lot that it can be overwhelming. I don't know where to start. You feel like throwing in the towel even before you begin. And I would say you're not alone, and that's okay. Everybody has started out there. And so, as they say, the best time to build or plant a tree was like 10 years ago. The second best time is now. And so,
I love that.
To get started, you need to be moving your feet. And the only way that you can get better is by moving your feet. And secondly, I would say, I've been very fortunate over the course of my career to talk to a number of industry influencers, technology entrepreneurs, best-selling authors with this campaign coming up. And the common thread that I hear is everyone was once a contender before they become a champion in their ring, in their area of expertise. And you just need to be consistent. You need to keep showing up for your community. That's the common thread that I see. And the ones that stick to the finish line are not necessarily ones with the most talent or the most expertise. They're the ones that kept showing up. So you need to just keep testing your audience. And I guess that's the last thing I would say is, be ready to test, and what works for someone else in your industry might not work exactly the same for you. And that's okay. And that's a good sign, because that means you're cultivating something unique, and the unique things are going to be the perennial things that last. And so, show up, be consistent, keep going, ask for help, surround yourself with people doing the same thing. You can connect with so many digital groups nowadays too. If it's swapping comments on each other's blog, mind you, do it authentically so you don't get marked as spam with algorithms. But just connect with others doing the same thing, and that will put a fire under your butt to keep going.
Oh, it's just so amazing. And speaking of like sticking with the plan, so thank you so much for sticking with me, like with. So I really appreciate that. And do you also want to share your personal social media handle so people want to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me at Elise Asanias on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Happy to connect. I'm sure you can add the links. Feel free to connect. Happy to chat about content and all things digital marketing.
Oh, thank you so much, Elise.
Yeah,
this is really wonderful, and I learned so much. I'm so sorry that we couldn't. We have my dear friend Jerry here, which is amazing. He finally made it. Somehow discovered I'm here going live, and so thank you for being here, Jerry. Truly appreciate you.
And I'm 1,000 true fans.
Yeah. That's right. And I'm definitely going to share this on Facebook. And I also learned a big lesson from today's interview in terms of just like, don't put all the eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you never know what's going to happen. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. It's been great chatting anytime. Yeah, let's stay connected.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, Elise. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Alberto.